Great work, Chris. Some amazing tips there. And when it comes to houseplant hints, then James Wong has all the knowledge. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
What's your top tip for houseplants?
Okay, so I'm going to make a very unsubtle segue here, but I've got to say it's going to be terrariums, right? Because they create this huge humidity, which loads of houseplants like, and it's quite difficult to replicate anywhere else. And they're really low maintenance in terms of watering. So they're that perfect combination.
I love terrariums. I've got a tiny one at home. It's so small, but this just seems like more magical, like a little world.
Yeah, what I love about creating them is not only do I escape into a fantasy world by viewing them, I get to have a hand in creating that. And I'd say the #1 tip on creating a terrarium is to go for a larger vessel.
Okay.
I have made these that have been, tiny, like a little tiny vase. However, the bigger they are, the more stable the environment is inside and the easier they are to grow.
Well, show us how to make one.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll take a fishbowl rather than any one of those geodesic type shapes, and I'm going to fill it with this. This is called akadama soil, and it's sold by bonsai manufacturers, and it's so much better at growing terrariums than any sort of compost you can use. And it does that because it holds very little moisture. Terrariums are all about creating loads of air moisture and very little root moisture. If you've had a terrarium that's gone moldy or rotted, it's because you've used compost instead of this stuff. So I basically poured a whole bunch in, I've smoothed it back out.
And it's easy to sort of manipulate in the bowl?
Absolutely, with the back of a spoon you can create any shape you want. I like to do this kind of slanted arrangement. And then I've covered the surface of that in this stuff. It's called bun moss, a scientific name because I like to get a bit of Latin in, Lycobreum glaucum. And you can buy it at any florist shop, usually on order, but it's not expensive. And really, I've tried every single moss variety there is to grow. This is the only one that's really sustainable in a terrarium.
To get the best stuff so it lasts.
Absolutely. So I've packed that in, and then all you have to do is put some plants in. So I'll give you an example of this. This is a lovely little Phytonia, and here's a tip. I'm going to snip these bits out.
You just snip them out?
Yeah. You could plant this, however, to be more precise about your arrangement, and I think to make it look a bit more natural, you can do this. And it's kind of halfway between floristry and horticulture. In the high humidity in here, these will root into place. And it just allows you to position them in a more precise way. You can do it old school, so we've got an Ophiopogon here. I'm going to take this guy out of his pot. To make plants look really naturalistic in a terrarium, I find you take them out. In here, there's a whole bunch of smaller plants. It looks so much more realistic if you have clumps of odd numbers of small plants rather than just one large one.
I see.
So I'd almost take all the soil off there.
Take all the soil off.
And you can just shove them.
And almost like dig it in with your hand.
I'm doing this very quickly, but basically you nestle them in between the moss. And it's the moss that they root into. And so if you have smaller examples next to the bigger ones, it looks like a natural rainforest clump that really popped up rather than just whacking 3 big monsters in there.
So then you've got some bigger ones there as well.
And in terms of care after that, the biggest thing is to make sure that they're not overwatered. So I always water them with a mister. Again, it's all about air humidity, not root humidity. Spray that in there.
Spray that.
And I might seal the top of this. In fact, I almost always do. And I'd put something like you can even use a sheet of cling film that's trimmed around the edge. You won't notice the difference. Or like a glass plate or a glass saucer. And that's all you need to do. I mist them maybe about once a month. If there's any dead leaves, I remove them with the tweezers. That's all you've got to do.
And then there's some little wooden feature in this one, so you can just...
Yeah, so got little pieces of wood, which you can get at aquarium supply shops. You can also get beautiful pieces of rocks that just have so much more detail and just create your own fantasy world.
Thank you so much, James. I'm going to do one of my own at home. Fantastic.